Good morning to everybody, and welcome to the European Summit in Brussels. It's the European Intermodal Summit, a conference that will focus on how intermodal freight transport has performed for Europe and to effectively mitigate the diverse range of challenges ahead of us. In these difficult times, when people are not meeting, we want to show faces. You will have testimonies of high-level sector participants and all the European institutions, the Commission, the Council, and the Parliament. Your host today will be Marjorie van Leyen, Editor-in-Chief of railfreight.com. Welcome, Marjorie, and thanks for accepting to moderate the European Intermodal Summit.
Yes, good morning, everybody, and welcome from my side as well. We have a great number of participants from all over Europe and actually also from North America and Asia. We have around 400 participants, so this is a great number. Welcome, everybody, to this European Intermodal Summit. We would like to ask you to participate with us as much as possible. There are several opportunities to interact. We don't have to miss out on that. We have a chat function where you can post your questions while the speaker is speaking, and then there will be dedicated moments where these questions will be answered. So while the conference is ongoing, you can already write down your questions. Now, the first part of this morning will be characterized by speakers who represent Europe. So speakers from the European Commission, from the European Parliament, and the European Council. We have three keynote speakers. The first will be Transport Commissioner Adina Jona Valian, who represents the European Commission. And then we have the State Secretary and Federal Government Coordinator for Freight Transport and Logistics, Steven Bilger, and he will articulate the vision of the German Council Presidency. And last, we will have the European Parliament represented by the Transport Committee First Vice Chair Istvan Ujhelyi, and he will focus on the expectations of the European citizens. But before we start with the keynote speakers, we will talk about a short movie. The short movie we will see is from the Combined project, and this is a project that is it's an initiative to promote the intermodal transport within the Baltic Sea region. And this movie mirrors exactly what we try to put forward during this conference, and that is the intermodal solutions that we have, the solutions that intermodal transport has delivered in the past, the intermodal solutions that has been there now, and the intermodal solutions for the future. So let's have a look at this movie first.
Transporting goods is vitally important to Europe's economy. Even so, we can't ignore the negative impact this has had on our environment and society. Take a moment to consider the effects of door-to-door road transport on carbon emissions, pollution, traffic congestion, and road safety. For every land transport challenge from the past decades, combined transport has delivered a solution. Looking back in time, combined transport first stepped up to the plate with containerisation during the 50s. Deep-sea container vessels moved containers packed full of manufactured products between Asia, North America, Europe and the rest of the world with great efficiency. Fossil fuel-powered vehicles came to dominate Europe's freight transport until the oil crisis highlighted our dependence on imported oil and the risks of relying on fossil fuel-based transportation. Railway operators stepped in, facilitating carriage using electric power, which reduced our exposure to oil. Alongside industrial processes, fossil fuel-burning vehicles were a major contributor to air pollution. Its first manifestations were smog and acid rain. Combined transport provided an environmentally friendly solution, with pocket wagons and articulated intermodal wagons moved by electric locomotives. With ever-intensifying road traffic, congestion and accidents have become a severe problem with a significant financial impact, costing over 1% of the European GDP, an amount equal to the European Union's yearly budget. Combined transport provides a way to reduce these unwanted costs while improving safety at the same time. Using the right loading unit for different types of cargo helps ease road traffic, which reduces congestion and ultimately accidents too. Increased burning of carbon for energy to power the economy and urbanisation has resulted in the build-up of greenhouse gases that are directly responsible for global warming and climate change. Europe's Blue Banana region houses the continent's economic engine and is a major source of its carbon emissions. The Blue Banana is gradually expanding into neighbouring regions, ranging from the Iberian Peninsula and Southeast Europe to Great Britain and the Nordic and Baltic Sea regions. What does the future look like? Ever-increasing competition and the post-pandemic economic recovery requires the European economy to improve its productivity. Europe's highly developed infrastructure boosted steady investment, digitalisation and innovation. The European vision of a carbon-neutral society implies a carbon-neutral surface freight transport by 2050 as well. Combined transport is ready for the challenges ahead. Are you?
Yes, so our first speaker, as mentioned, is Madame Adina Jona Valian, who is the Transport Commissioner of the von der Leyen Commission. Now, Madame Valian has served in the European Parliament. She was having the chair of the Industry Committee, and we look forward to hearing what the European Commission expects from the intermodal transport sector, especially in the view of the European Green Deal, but also in the view of the climate law targets and in general for reinforcing the economy of the European Union. Please have the floor.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of the UIRR Intermodal Summit. And as it is the year when you celebrate the 30th anniversary of this event, let me start by congratulating you on reaching that impressive landmark of 30 years. Bringing so much knowledge, experience, and drive together in one room, even if it is a virtual room, is sure to provide us we need to take forward intermodal transport, or multimodality, as we call it in the European Commission. The need to make transport more multimodal is not new. The first combined transport directive, recognizing how multimodality can reduce the negative externalities of transport, was adopted already in 1975. But I strongly believe that the European Green Deal, with its aim to achieve the climate neutrality by 2050, brings a new impetus to boost multimodality. I think that in this forum, we all agree that by reducing our dependence on road transport for long-distance freight transport, we can address the negative externalities of transport, including CO2 emission reduction, and also improve the overall efficiency of the transport system. This is why multimodality will be one of the main pillars of our new strategy for sustainable and smart mobility, which we will present by the end of the year. While referring to the strategy, I have to also point out the digitalization, another of the strategy's pillars, which is a key enabler for both sustainability and multimodality, and for strengthening resilience within the transport system. In line with this, we plan to revise the Combined Transport Directive, as I'm sure you know. The revision will make the most of recent innovations, such as transshipment technologies, digital data exchange via electronic freight transport information platform. We do, however, have a number of challenges ahead of us before multimodality is fully integrated in the transport system. The first is infrastructure. Intermodal transport is unworkable without transshipment terminals and rail tunnels that can fit standard container trains. As we prepare a proposal on revising the TEN-T guidelines, we are looking to make sure that TEN-T is in the unique position of integrating and interconnecting all transport modes, including smart components, and therefore optimizing the system overall. We will also look into encouraging more investment by member states in terminal networks and other infrastructure, with the aim of completing the TEN-T network. Future calls under the Connecting Europe facility will cover investment in railroad terminals and multimodal logistic platforms. Rail will maintain its central place within TEN-T policy, and we will continue to invest. To date, more than 70% of the Connecting Europe facility transport investment has gone to rail, and the budget of 21.4 billion, as agreed by EU leaders in July, will have a direct impact on the volume of infrastructure investment that is possible. We are also looking into revising the rail freight corridor regulation. I'm looking forward to learning more about the rail sector work to modernize capacity through the timetable redesign project. On my side, I'm pushing for the full deployment of advanced ERTMS so that we can fully exploit infrastructure capacity. I would also make a plea to never overlook quality when delivering to freight consumers. I very much appreciate the work of the Union on this issue. It is very important to me that we pursue a market-driven approach, but we will also assess to what extent a revision of the legislation could help. With the best will in the world, intermodal transport is simply not competitive in many situations, in particular over medium distances. For rail, we can use new technologies such as remote monitoring of the cargo environment, automated loading and unloading, remote monitoring of wagon condition to increase competitiveness. We can also use market rules. We need to create a situation in which market forces give preference to green transport solutions. A first step would be to give transport users adequate information on the effects of their choices. Also to give them incentives. We are looking into possible regulatory measures and economic support, but to really propose meaningful changes, we need your views and support. You know the sector, you know the problems, and you know the needs and options. Please do get involved and contribute with your position on our reflection on how to boost multimodality. For sure, one way to make multimodality more competitive is to modernize the rules on road pricing. The Commission proposed to revise the Eurovignette directive back in 2017 in order to ensure that external costs of road use are better reflected and to incentivize hauliers to invest in cleaner and more efficient vehicles. Although the European Parliament adopted a position 2 years ago, we know that member states failed to do the same, and time lost is frustrating for everyone. But I count on the German presidency and the commitment now coming from member states to take this file further and hopefully reach a general approach by the end of the year. If it is to discuss a bit on the challenges for rail, we have work to do for rail to play a full role in the multimodal network. There are a number of ways in which we can increase efficiency and therefore attractiveness. For example, by deploying innovative and digital solutions. I'm proud to say that some of new technologies were developed within EU-funded projects. We have, for example, tools to identify the composition of trains and load and to provide location and arrival time information. We are now mainstreaming these technologies in EU regulations. Rail freight transport will be also one of the priority areas for the future work of the successor of the shift to rail. Freight requires our special attention because current market conditions provide little incentive for commercial research and innovation, despite the clear societal benefits of shifting freight to rail. We see an enormous potential for rail, and this is why we propose to make 2021 the European Year of Rail. The year will be to promote rail and convince passengers and businesses alike to make it their preferred form of transport. I also hope to see reflection and discussions within the sector on increasing efficiency and attracting more customers. So, ladies and gentlemen, we all have a lot of work ahead of us to make multimodality the success that it definitely can be, starting with infrastructure, digitalization, and investment. I hope that in making multimodality one of the key pillars of our future strategy, we are showing how serious we are about bringing more intermodal transport to the EU. And I hope that I can rely on all of you to support us as we will implement this strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Valian. It's clear that the European Commission expects a lot from the intermodal transport sector in the decade to come, and beyond that, of course. Our next speaker is Steven Bilger, the State Secretary and Federal Government Coordinator for Freight, Transport and Logistics, and he represents the German Council presidency. And Steven Bilger will highlight from the perspective of the Council and the view of the member states how they see the role of intermodal transport in the grand scheme of transport politics during the coming years. Yes, Steven Bilger, are you there? Yes, we have Steven Bilger here. Welcome, Steven. Please go ahead. Can you unmute your camera? Unmute your microphone. We cannot hear you.
Okay, now it should work. Okay. Ja, sehr geehrte Frau Kommissarin Valian, sehr geehrter Präsident Schütze, meine Damen und Herren, guten Morgen. Wie es schon gesagt wurde, gerade eben spreche ich heute in zwei Funktionen zu Ihnen. Einerseits als Koordinator der Bundesregierung für Güterverkehr und Logistik, andererseits repräsentiere ich als parlamentarischer Staatssekretär beim Bundesminister für Verkehr und digitale Infrastruktur die deutsche Ratspräsidentschaft. Und in beiden Funktionen gratuliere ich Ihnen zunächst einmal von ganzem Herzen zu Ihrem Jubiläum. 50 Jahre internationale Vereinigung für den kombinierten Verkehr Straße, Schiene ist ein guter Grund zum Feiern. Sie können sich feiern lassen als Vereinigung und natürlich auch Ihre Mitgliedsunternehmen für die Erfolge in diesem halben Jahrhundert. Grund zum Feiern hat aber auch noch etwas anderes, nämlich das Klima. Denn, und das brauche ich Ihnen nicht zu sagen, kombinierter Verkehr ist gelebter Klimaschutz. Normalerweise würde ich jetzt bei einem solchen Grußwort sagen, was wir uns alles für den kombinierten Verkehr in Europa wünschen würden und was wir in Deutschland bereits alles dafür getan und in Zukunft an Förderung noch vorhaben. Derzeit gibt es aber kein Normal. Wir leben und arbeiten in herausfordernden Zeiten. Corona ändert vieles, bereitet Probleme, von denen wir uns in Europa nicht hätten träumen lassen, dass wir darüber wieder reden müssen. Ich spreche vom freien Warenverkehr. Und trotz oder gerade wegen akuter Probleme müssen wir weiter über das große Ganze nachdenken. Ich möchte Sie an Ihrem Jubiläumstag nicht mit Zahlen langweilen. Als deutsche Bundesregierung sind wir dem Klimaschutz verpflichtet und wir wollen dieses Thema auch während unserer Ratspräsidentschaft weiter vorantreiben. Das Motto unserer Präsidentschaft ist ja gemeinsam Europa wieder stark machen. Es hat wenig mit Make Europe Great Again zu tun, mehr mit Europa gut durch die Krise zu bringen, durch die Corona-Krise zu bringen, eben gemeinsam. Kombinierter Verkehr, Klimaschutz funktioniert nur, wenn wir alle in Europa gemeinsam daran arbeiten, Verkehre von der Straße auf die Schiene zu verlagern. Bundesverkehrsminister Andreas Scheuer hat es in seiner Ratspräsidentschaft Halbzeitbilanz so ausgedrückt. Wir müssen die Mobilität in Europa moderner und innovativer gestalten. Der Klimawandel verändert unsere Welt und wir müssen die enorme Herausforderung annehmen. Dabei kommt dem kombinierten Verkehr in Europa eine große Bedeutung zu. So haben die EU-Verkehrsminister erst vor 5 Wochen eine Berliner Erklärung verabschiedet. Darin bekennen sich die Mitgliedstaaten zum Schienengüterverkehr und ausdrücklich zum kombinierten Verkehr. Konkret zeigen die EU-Verkehrsminister in der Berliner Erklärung, dass sie den grenzüberschreitenden Schienengüterverkehr fördern und die Schienengüterverkehrskorridore weiter stärken wollen und den Schienengüterverkehrsakteuren Unterstützung dabei geben werden, um ihnen eine bessere Anpassung an die Marktanforderungen zu ermöglichen. Als ein weiteres Beispiel aus unseren Aktivitäten in der Ratspräsidentschaft sind unsere Eckpunkte für einen Pandemie- und Krisennotfallplan für den europäischen Güterverkehr zu nennen. Wir brauchen eben während Zeiten wie der Pandemie gemeinsame Lösungen innerhalb der EU. Mir ist dabei bewusst, dass uns allen diese Pandemie in der Politik, aber auch Ihnen und der Logistikwirtschaft insgesamt viel abverlangt. Corona wird uns noch verhältnismäßig lange erhalten bleiben und wir begleiten Sie aber weiter auf diesem Weg. Sie haben bei uns immer ein offenes Ohr. 50 Jahre ist eine lange Zeit. Sie können stolz auf das Erreichte sein, aber die Vergangenheit lenkt auch den Blick in die Zukunft. Und die ist ohne Sie als wichtigen Akteur im europäischen Güterverkehr nicht denkbar. In diesem Sinne noch einmal herzliche Glückwünsche und viel Erfolg für die Zukunft, um Europa wieder gemeinsam stark zu machen.
Okay, thank you very much. Charlie?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Just a few words on what State Secretary Bilger just told to us. I think it was very clear, it was very short, but it was extremely meaningful. What he said was that, first of all, the congratulations to the 50th anniversary of UIRR. Thank you for that, Mr. Bilger. We are proud of the last 50 years, but we are aware that we have 50 years in front of us. Besides that, the main issue was the climate, and we need the protection of the climate. We must live this protection of the climate. For the moment being, we have other challenges like the coronavirus, which is the biggest challenge ever in Europe. And that's why we don't have to lose the big picture. We can count on the commitment of the German presidency, and with the Berlin Declaration, which was accompanied by the sector statement as well of the railway sector. I think it was a strong continuation of the Rotterdam Declaration, the Vienna Declaration, and the Berlin Declaration to boost rail freight in Europe. It has been stated again that there is a full support from the member states. So the modal shift from the road to more sustainable modes of transport remains a big target, and the strong support again from the member states is assured. We need common solutions. We need solutions from all the member states. So the perspective is not to be the one from one member state, but the perspective from all member states. We can count on open ears of the German presidency, and the motto is to make Europe strong again, not to make Europe big again, but really to make Europe strong again. Thank you, Mr. Bilger, for these very meaningful words. Back to Marjorie, please.
Thank you, Charlie, for summarizing these meaningful words. And we are up for our last speaker now. This is Mr. Ujheli, and he is the first vice chair of the European Parliament Transport Committee. And Mr. Ujheli will represent what the expectations of the European citizens are from intermodal transport.
Honorable Commissioner, State Secretary, leaders of intermodality industry, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to articulate the opinion and expectations of the European electorate in my capacity as a member of the European Parliament and being the Vice Chair of its Transport and Tourism Committee. Parallel with this, I'm a member of the ENVI committee as well, which is also important for us, for you now. The European elections of May 2019 have returned a new European Parliament to Brussels that has shown on numerous occasions before the coronavirus crisis even broke out its commitment to stopping climate change, its desire to achieve a greater social justice, equal opportunity and the right to a clean and safe environment. The climate emergency declaration of November last year was followed by the European Green Deal announcement of Commission President von der Leyen at the start of 2020 and later by the European Climate Law, which we are currently considering. A few weeks ago, we voted to require that the 1990 CO2 emission levels should not only be cut by 40% within 10 years, as proposed originally in the draft, and not even by 55% as suggested by the European Council, but by 60%. This is a powerful signal that net carbon neutrality needs to be achieved by 2050, well within our and our children's lifetime. Negotiations will begin soon between the European institutions to define the compromise path to this ultimate aim. And transport, freight transport, will have its task cut out. The European citizens are counting on the intermodal sector to remove at least every second long-distance truck from our motorways and replace it with efficient, clean and safe intermodal forwarding, either by electric trains or by modern waterborne vessels. The European economy must gain access to the energy efficiency enabled by intermodal freight transport. The European legislator also produced the Electronic Freight Transport Information Regulation that will catalyze your digitalization efforts. Member state authorities will be required to accept all of the data that accompanies a freight transport movement in a digital way. FT will deliver a major boost to competitiveness by cutting the bureaucratic and administrative burden to shippers and operators by half, while enabling enhanced enforcement. The European citizens expect close controls, but ask us to define rules which, whenever possible, minimize the disruption that goes with enforcement. And this is what we did. Lastly, I must address the coronavirus pandemic and the economic hardship that defending against it is causing the European people. Combined transport must be applauded for how it performed during the spring lockdown, when trucks could suddenly not cross the internal borders of the European Union. Intermodal trains continued to run, which was of grave importance to ensure that vital supplies were delivered to European customers from places as far as China. I'm convinced that the member states' governments realized the importance of the sector. The current challenge at our hands is to rebuild the European economy while protecting jobs and the livelihoods of our citizens. The green transition needs to be engineered in tandem with a deeply rooted desire for safety and security. A more competitive European economy must emerge in the end. Freight transport and logistics must evolve with these requirements. Greater competitiveness, efficiency, yet jobs and security must be ensured hand in hand. The European intermodal sector needs to perform strongly. The European legislator helps, but also demands at the same time. Digitalization must be exploited. Business models should be reorganized if need be, and highly productive jobs created to reach this goal. Everyone must do their part to protect Europe as a great place to live, to create equal opportunities, a safe and clean living environment, while leaving a planet with a stabilizing climate to our children. I would like to thank UIRR for the initiative to organize this summit event and for inviting me. I understand that you have just passed the 50th anniversary of its founding. Quietly, as the pandemic does not allow a loud celebration. Mr. Schulz, I wish that you have the opportunity next year to make up for this celebration, while I thank you for the consistent work that you and your colleagues deliver for Europe and for intermodal transport in the meanwhile. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you a fruitful conference. Thank you, bye.
Yes, the European electorate has spoken clearly when it voted for this European Parliament in May 2019. Thank you very much for reminding us to that fact, and thank you very much for reminding us all of the celebration of the 50-year anniversary of UIRR. Then it's now time for the UIRR President, Ralph Charlie Schulz, to summarize the solutions that have been provided by the intermodal transport sector and to see what this has done for the economy of the European Union.
Hello again. Thank you again very much for joining the European Intermodal Summit and allowing me rapidly to walk you through the decades behind European combined transport and to recall the host of solutions that is presented to help overcoming the challenges of the times. So combined transport and the challenges of the past. This will be the first part of our conference with the faces of the stakeholders. Next slide, please. I will quickly present you some of the challenges of the past, which we found are important enough to be mentioned. This is the sustainable zero, let's connect to other continents. I think this is extremely important. Then we have lower oil dependency, mitigation of air pollution, the reduction of road traffic, of congestions, and of course of accidents. So all these external effects. And of course, we have to curb the greenhouse gas emissions to halt the climate change. Next slide, please. I will just run through these 5 points. The first one being to connect to other continents. This was quite a revolution when the container has been developed and founded. The shipping container is an invention already of the 50s, and it was meant to accelerate loading and unloading at ports. And it's very versatile, capable of holding all kinds of manufactured or semi-finished goods, as well as raw materials. So the whole story of combined transport is a story of the box. Next slide. Next point, next challenge of the past is to lower the oil dependency. And of course, this through the forwarding of continental units. They're not only the boxes as containers, they're also swap bodies and trailers. And the Huckepack concept was developed. So it was the first time to put a truck in a train, so one mode carrying another. And on long distances, the trucks can cover long distances sections of continental transport chains by using not only the road, but also waterborne systems. This was pretty new. Next, please. The third one is to mitigate air pollution. A loading unit for every type of cargo. So the development in the last 50 years was really to have these boxes for all types of cargo, for liquids, for perishable goods, an open top or flat rack. So really all kinds of vertical markets can have their intermodal loading unit. Next one. And last but not least, the next one is reduce road traffic congestion and accidents, all these external effects. And this, of course, through the most logical means, which is the semi-trailer transport. We have a company combined transport where full trucks, including the drivers, rolling motorways, are put from the road on the train. And we also have unaccompanied combined transport of semi-trailers, where we need a vertical transshipment and a horizontal transshipment where it is possible of trailers onto trains. So both systems have been developed. You can see here very nice pictures of Modelor, for example, but in the end of the day, the vertical transshipment is still the mostly used. Next slide. The next challenge is about the greenhouse gas emissions and how to curb them to halt climate change. This is really something extremely important. As the Commissioner mentioned earlier, combined transport directive is part of the European Green Deal and the climate legislation. It's been mentioned there, and there are energy efficient modes. The road, of course, is also sustainable, but with electric trains of 750-meter length and 2,000 tons gross weight, they carry up to 56 truckloads of cargo. And the same is for the barges, where up to 100 truckloads can be carried on the most modern barges. This was it from my side, these 5 points about the challenges of the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlie. It was a very comprehensive summary. Now, it's time for the first batch of CEO interventions, but before we start, I'd like to remind the audience that you can post your questions. Please post your questions in the chat box. Feel free to address them to any of the speakers, and we'll handle them in the first Q&A session. Now, we're beginning with the message from the CEO of Rail Cargo Group, Dr. Clemens First, and he is also the spokesperson of the Rail Freight Forward Coalition. And the Rail Freight Forward Coalition was brought to life in order to increase the rail freight share by 2030 with at least a doubling of the volumes. Now, Clemens First will talk from the perspective of a railway undertaking. Please go ahead.
A very warm welcome from sunny Vienna. My name is Clemens First. I'm the CEO of the Rail Cargo Group, and it's a huge honor to be able to address you today. We have a huge climate crisis at hand, which is currently overshadowed by COVID, but which is here to stay. Rail freight and rail is the only option to have sustainable land transport for the next 10 to 15 years, because at least I personally don't believe in the mass adoption of electro or hydrogen trucking. So we desperately need to increase the modal share of rail. How can this be done? The rail freight sector has come together within the Rail Freight Forward initiative to give an answer to that. And the strategy 30 by 2030, so to increase the modal share to 30% in Europe by 2030, rests on 3 pillars. The first pillar is we as a rail freight sector need to do our homework. As a sector, and we are working on small initiatives like reducing language barriers, improving brake sheets, and large initiatives such as our current initiative to introduce the digital automatic coupling in Europe. So homework as a sector, homework as individual railway undertakings. Taking Rail Cargo Group as an example, we are massively investing in our Transnet network. We are massively investing in innovative rolling stock and sensorics. We are massively investing in digitalization. We are proud that lots of things have been achieved. We know that there's still a way to go, but there is a program for that. Doing our homework as a sector, first pillar. Even if we do a perfect job as a sector, we still don't have a fighting chance of moving the needle because we need 2 other pillars, 2 other prerequisites. The first one is a high-performing infrastructure. Running a train through Europe needs to be as easy as going by truck. Simple vision, simple demand, still a very, very long way to go. Third pillar we also need is fair economic boundary conditions, the so-called level playing field. Simple example, in Austria, we have a subsidy scheme for rail, which at least for a small part bridges the economic disadvantage we have as a rail sector. We have a modal share of 30%. Europe typically doesn't have such subsidy scheme. Modal share is between 17 and 80%. three pillars: doing our homework, high-performing infrastructure, economically level playing field. I'm really convinced that the 2020s will be a decade of renaissance for rail freight, because we have tremendous public awareness for the climate change issue. We have overwhelming policy support within the Green Deal, and we as a sector are aligned with a strategy. We are working on that, and I invite you to support us in our effort. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. That was Clemens Forst. And I now invite you, Mr. Robert Breuhan, the CEO of Combiverkehr, which was a founding member of the UIRR and also one of the largest intermodal transport operators in Europe. Mr. Breuhan, are you with us?
Good morning, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen. Heraclitus, a famous Greek philosopher, once said, "Nothing is a constant, a change." If Heraclitus had not already been dead for 2050 years, one might consider that he was thinking of combined transport when he coined this insight. Since the intermodal transport system was inaugurated in 1916, it has undergone a permanent change. When Combiverkehr commenced its operations on July 1st, 1969, we started up with 5 intermodal services. Today, we are running round about 170 trains per day. In the beginning, roadway transshipment of swap bodies or semi-trailers were often carried out at obsolete rail sidings or parts of rail yards, which were not in use for wagon load traffic anymore. Across Europe, those makeshift locations are now replaced by dedicated intermodal terminals featuring state-of-the-art technologies. In the early days of combined transport, operators were hardly more than sales organizations of services which state railways determined and operated. Over the years, roles have changed completely. We as intermodal operators have assumed responsibility from railways. Based on market research, we design the service profile of trains and seek to negotiate road competitive costs with rail traction service providers. And now, we carry virtually our entire transport volume on block trains, for which we bear the economic risk. The continental combined transport system initially was, let me say, a hodgepodge of technologies, especially in regard of loading units or wagons. Under the roof of the UIRR, we struggled to standardize technologies on a European level with an aim to catch productivity gains and minimize frictional losses at interfaces. Meanwhile, we have achieved full interoperability among European intermodal operators, unlike rail infrastructure, by the way. Combined transport started up as a national system. The supply overwhelmingly comprised of national services. In tandem with the creation of an European internal market, we have established and then extended our range of cross-border trains across Europe. Today, international services account for about 80% of Combiverkehr's total transport volume. The latter proves the prerequisite of a deregulated and harmonized legal framework across the European Union for the growth of combined transport operations. In this regard, we are very much concerned of recent political tendencies for national solutions, exemplified by the Mobility Package 1. Combined transport railroad has been a success model. In the past 25 years, it was been the growth market of rail freight transport in Europe. The intermodal sector today accounts for 35 to 40% of the total transport for performance of rail freight. I'm confident that combined transport will exceed the 50% mark in the next 5 to 10 years, provided that the legal framework in the European Union will support and facilitate the efforts of forwarders, shippers, shipping lines, ports, as well as intermodal and terminal operators to shift volumes onto climate-friendly intermodal services. But all these things we are not doing for poor economic reasons only, at least not exclusively. We will continue making combined transportation more efficient and better for one important reason. The transport sector must make a significant contribution to the overall target to lower the CO2 emissions, fighting climate change. Verkehr and the combined transport system itself are helping to reach this important goal. And that is why I look ahead into the future with strong confidence and great optimism. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is the founder of a family-owned business in Italy, which is committed to intermodal only. His name is Livio Ambrogio, and he was actually involved in the transformation of Ambrogio Trasporti, which was in the 1950s still a road haulier, and is now a market leader in the intermodal transport door-to-door business model. Now we're going to hear from him now.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here, giving me this opportunity. I will tell you about my last 60 years of life, starting with the beginning. In the 60s, Ambrogio was a road carrier, international, between Italy and northern countries. As a teenager, I had the chance to travel with my drivers plenty of times in the summer and also in the winter to Germany or to Belgium. Fact was that every week these trucks had to cross the Alps twice, going out and going back. And whenever something happened, they had to stay over the weekend abroad, not being able to come back to Italy. The big novelty came in the late 60s when we saw Sealand set up regular container services to the northern parts of Europe. And that was an illumination for Ambrogio, because we saw that intermodal was at last possible, meaning that the different modalities, road, sea, and rail, could be combined to give an efficient door-to-door service. So in '69, I was 20 at the time. I spent most of the year in the States working with a large carrier. That gave me the opportunity to visit a couple of times the rail yards in Chicago, where intermodal operations were already in action. I mean, in particular, Santa Fe company, which handled as well trailers, TRFC trailers on flat cars and containers on flat cars. So I found that this carrier was providing door-to-door service, owning terminals, fleets, and running its own train. And that, from that day on, that became our vision, the vision of Ambrogio. With the only exception, of course, for the locks, because as European network is being a patchwork of national rail networks, conditions were not 100% similar. So we started our intermodal business door-to-door on the western Italian corridor. That is the Frisians between Turin and Lyon. Then in the second part of the 80s, we developed other connection through Switzerland, through the Lösberg and the Gotthard, two connections that would be improved very much later on by the building of the first base tunnel. Now, in June 2020, so a few months ago, in the middle of the coronavirus crisis, we started all the same brand new connections between Italy and Germany through the Brenner. In all these years, we have met all the challenges that our transport has been confronted with. I mean, energy saving, the oil wars, CO2 reduction, respect for the environment, and I would say a better life for truck drivers. In one word, I would say a green job since the very first day. Although, I must say today, in the 70s, the appreciation for combined transport in most cases didn't go farther than getting a cheaper transport rate versus the road. All along 5 decades, we have been investing in terminals, 7 of them so far, own equipment, rail cars, UTI, not trailers, swap bodies or boxes, because we find them more efficient. And developing also a state-of-the-art IT system to cope with the new digital era and with the demands of our customers. 5 years ago, we joined, say, the new UIRR by the invitation of Charlie, who was very insistent, and I'm happy he was so insistent because this is a very this is a unique association. I would say that is a beacon in Europe because it is the only reliable reference center for the freight community, intermodal freight community, which is growing larger and larger in Europe by the day. That is, in short, my story. In the end, I would like to thank everybody, and if I have to mention just one priority, I would say that is infrastructure, because this century will be the century of rail, and we need more infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambrogio, and thank you for offering this historic account and personal account into what has driven the company to go intermodal. Now, intermodal transport is not only about road and rail. It's not only about terminals. It's also about seaborne transport, deep sea vessels, and inland barges. I would like to introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Erich Stake, who is the CEO of Duisport. And Duisport is the ideal city and the ideal location for Europe with its inland port facilities to offer hinterland connections from the port of Rotterdam. Now, Mr. Stake will explain to you how Duisport turned into the beating heart of combined transport. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Good morning, everybody. Apologize for a little delay. Well, to talk a little bit about Duisport, Duisport was a former bulk port, well known, has become the leading inland port in the world, but we were facing a lot of structural problems in the last 2 decades and turned Duisburg into indeed the leading intermodal hub for Central Europe. In the meantime, we are defining more than 50% of our cargo transshipment here to intermodal activities. It's the combination of maritime and continental cargo. For sure, we are linked to Antwerp and Rotterdam as the major entrance and exit gates to Europe with the River Rhine into the hinterland, but continental cargo was the driver within the last 10 years to achieve a figure which is, well, a little bit outrageous for an inland port, more than 4 million TEU in the last 2 years, and even this year in COVID-19 crisis, we are expecting a growth, and that is depending very much on the fact that on one hand we are operating roughly 20,000 trains per year in intermodal. We are probably the most competitive location in Europe with around about 25 operators and tractioneers. And we have built a capacity of 8 terminals. And we will invest in the next 2 years in another 2 terminals. This finally comes to a total investment of more than 400 million TEU in infrastructure, including the terminal investments. We can hopefully offer at the end of 2022 a capacity of 6 million TEU, because we do see in this specific sector, in the intermodal sector, very much room for growth in the years to come. And this is from our point of view very much concentrated on the eastbound corridor, where we see a lot of potential, not only with respect to China. I guess in the meantime everybody knows that Duisburg has become the most important region and location for China traffic. We are operating between 50 and 60 trains per week, and this is due to strong cooperations with the major Chinese partners like COSCO, China Merchants, China Railways, and the platforms. It is also very important to mention that the Chinese cargo is going to be distributed to more than 90 destinations throughout Europe, and the other way around, we can consolidate the cargo for the eastbound traffic to China. And finally, I would like to mention another driver which I see for the future as a very important one, and that is the trailer business. We have to concentrate more and more on this. So for uncraneable trailers, I see a lot of potential there. And if you have a look on the highways, especially here in Germany, then you realize that the congestion on the highways is very much due to trailers. So this is a big challenge for everybody in our industry. And the UIRR is a very important tool and has a very strong importance for strengthening the intermodal transportation. And I would like to congratulate the association for this anniversary. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those congratulations on behalf of UIRR. And thank you for sharing the story of how Duisburg has become the intermodal hub for the European economy. Now, you already mentioned something about deep sea vessels, and the next company that will represent it started out as a deep sea shipping line in Iceland. And today it's an intermodal transport operator. We're going to talk to Kari-Pekka Laaksonen, and he took over the helm of Samskip in the middle of 2019. Now, his big challenge is how to build an integrated tri-modal intermodal transport company.
Dear summit participants, my name is Kari-Pekka Laaksonen. I'm the CEO of the Samskip Group. I'm sorry that I cannot join online today, but I'm proud to tell you that Samskip is a fresh member of UIRR. To give you a little background information, Samskip is a privately owned company which was founded in the beginning of 1990s. In its early days, the company was focusing strongly on shipping. Over the years, we have grown both organically and through acquisitions. Today, multimodality has become a core of a business model. Samskip's main assets, the multimodal load units, meaning the containers of all sizes, are compatible with all transports. This has enabled us to enlarge our operations into rail and terminals, as well as supported our growth into the European market. We believe multimodality is the key aspect of the success of sustainable logistics. I'm looking forward to working in cooperation with UIRR. I wish you exciting summit and prosperous autumn in spite of the challenging times our industry is facing. Keep well and stay healthy.
Right, this was a good closure of the first batch of today's CEO interventions. And now it's time for us to ask you a question. So we said there will be interaction. This is the first moment of interaction. We're going to ask you to reply to a poll. And this poll is going to ask you which of the solutions provided by combined transport do you think were the most effective? It's a multiple choice question. There are several answers. It's pretty straightforward. You just have to choose what you prefer and send it in. And then we will follow on to the Q&A session. So it's also very important that if you have any questions for any of the speakers, write them in the chat box and we will make sure that it's addressed to the right speaker. So go ahead and vote. And please do not forget to send in your questions.
So the first question I got was multimodal and intermodal. What is the difference between the two? And what are the competitive drivers of each? And I think Mr. Breuhan could ask this question. What are the competitiveness drivers of multimodal and intermodal? Please, Mr. Breuhan, could you answer this question? Mr. Breuhan, do you hear me? Of course, the question can also go to the other panelists, Mr. Ambrogio and Mr. Starke.
Well, there is not much difference. I mean, in the beginning, when you started to handle one loading unit with two modalities, mainly sea and land, or road and rail, they call it combined transport. Then when it became a bit more organized, a bit more extended, they talked about intermodal. You could add a sea leg to the UK, for instance. Now, multimodal is a sheer idea that in transport, you have to combine a lot of different modalities. There are people arranging the load. It cannot be brought down to a simple description. So there is not much difference. I could say if there are two modalities, you can call it combined transport. If there are three, you can call it intermodal. If you have six, you call it multimodal.
From the perspective of the industry association, of course, combined transport is always with only a very small part on the road. So the road should be the shortest distance. But having you here, Livio, what is your vision for the development of European intermodal infrastructure? You said infrastructure is the most important for you. How should it be done and what would be needed? Because this was your point, the point you made, infrastructure.
Yeah. Yes, that is the most important because in the end, the growth of intermodal will go quicker than the capacity to build rail infrastructure or tunnel and so on. So everybody must do his part. And my part is to organize trains where the acting on weight, on measures, saving every kilo, and avoiding any unnecessary weight. We try to have a better average loads per train. But in the end, we see that there are times where the number of slots available is pretty tight. So when something happens on Corridor 2 in France, everybody wants to move to Corridor 1 to Germany, and it's not always easy to get a path. So the demand for slots will grow quickly. I expect that in this century, I will not see that myself, but this is a century for the rail, off the rail. As the last one was the century of gasoline, as I like to call it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Livio. I would like to ask a question to Erich Starke. I hope he's still with us, because you mentioned, Erich, China business. You mentioned trimodal, and private capital seems to be ready to invest. Can you tell us what changes could release more such private capital to the sector? So if Erich is not with us, perhaps Thibaut Fruitier from Novatrans, I know that you're also connected. You can react to this because you're also a private company and you invested a lot. Thibaut, my Vice President, floor is yours.
Hold on. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Could you just repeat the question, Charlie, please?
The question is about private investments. Private capital seems to be ready to invest. That's what we heard also from Mr. Starke from Duisburg. What changes could release more such private capital to the sector? And you have some experience with private capital.
Indeed, because as a founding member of the UIRR, so because Novatrans celebrated its 50 years old already in 2017, we see the big interest from private company called GCA, who took over Novatrans in the early 2013. So indeed, as a transport company, GCA sees the intermodal as a way to develop the long-haul transport, and see the capacity by involving more and more into Novatrans in the years, the capacity to develop the combined transport. So they see as well the really volunteer to put the private company to answer drastically into the industry needs. We think that there is a complementarity between the road and the intermodal, but there is as well a big need to get closer from our final end customers as well. So this is the reason why GCL get involved more and more. 2013 with Novatrans for the continental transport and terminals, because we run 7 terminals as well. And 2017 with Green Model, which is more maritime related, and with barging activity. So I was very pleased to see as well that you mentioned the part of the barging activity, because we see that we should, as a company, provide all the potential transport solution to the market. And this is the reason why private is looking more and more into involving into combined transport company and operator.
Thank you, Thibaut. Thank you very much. Perhaps a reaction from Peter Kish. I think he's around. Also on private investment, Peter.
Hopefully it works.
It works. Welcome.
Perfect. Yes, the private sector is very important to support the strategy that we have in front of us. We have had a case, especially in Slovakia, where it has been said, and it's still ongoing topic, that it's necessary to build container terminals, and then the cargo will come, then the multimodal sector, then the combined traffic will grow, then we will reach the goals like 2030 with 30%, 2050 with 50%. But we have a completely opposite opinion, that at this moment it's necessary to somehow put one strategy for all the segment, because each and every week, each and every day, we are reading in the newspaper that European Union is putting the strategy 2030, is putting the strategy how to improve the railway. But on the other hand, on the local, let's say, country levels, we do not see that this strategy is being followed. And this is very important. And this will be also, we are now skipping into my part where I will have the
don't want this too early, but thank you for reacting to this, Peter. And we see each other after the break. I see now that Imi and Karl Fischer and Werner Peters have raised their hands, but could you please send your questions via the chat room? Because we cannot take you orally, we only can take you via the chat room. So please pose your questions directly. I have in the meantime another question regarding trainability of trailers, because some people say that the standard trailer, craneable trailer would be the best solution for the modal shift from road to rail. Others say that there are other means, for example, specific transshipment techniques where you should invest in. Does anybody of the panelists want to react to this question? Perhaps Thibault again, or Mr. Breuhan? For UIRR, it's very clear, craneable trailers is a good asset. There should be more of them. But of course, if 95% are not craneable today, it will make the modal shift last a bit longer, although a trailer has a life of 7 to 10 years. So if we would start immediately, in 10 years it would be done. What is your opinion on that, Thibault?
A very big topic for French people, because the people trailer topic is a discussion we have ongoing since years and years, and we are very late into that technology, if we can say that it's still a technology for the rest of the Europe. But indeed, the trailer for us is still a very good way to boost the intermodal for France. And we see that today a lot of activity are missing on the train because we are not capable to make it happen. So we definitely think that still today there is a big grow capacity according to the P400 transport, and that's something we are pushing. We really need that the over member state push France to invest into the gabarit, because we really think that the P400 could drastically, and from 1 year to another one, I'm sure we could double certain kind of trains and line and corridors, because we have a lot of demand that are today postponed due to the non-capacity of our infrastructure to allow us to make it on a regular basis.
And if I would ask you, Thibault, which one of the 5 challenges of the past is the most important one? Containerization, we said, lower oil dependency, mitigate air pollution, greenhouse gases, reduce road traffic, congestion, accidents. Which one of these 5 would you choose?
As I would choose all of them, I should say.
So we will have in the poll 100%. Yes?
No, but if I have to choose one, definitely it would be the last one, because as living in the north of France, close to Lille, walking into Paris and in Marseille area every week, definitely we see that there is a big problems into the transport, and not only for the freight but for the people as well. And we definitely think that if our performance is coming in, we should release capacity on the road for distance that maybe rail could not answer. And definitely a lot of the French activity are just passing by the city and not entering into the city. So we think that the intermodal should give this capacity to get around those city and fluidify and simplify the traffic.
Thank you, Thibault. I see that Marjorie is ready. Please
Yes.
take over.
All right. Yes, it's time for the poll results to see what others have answered, and hopefully they have not chosen all 5 answers at once, but I think that's not technically possible. Let's see a slide. We have a very clear winner, containerization, with 65%. Then there is the second spot is for semi-trailer transportation by rail and waterborne. Forwarding of continental loading units, that is on the third, no, sorry, on the fourth. Third is integration of energy efficient modes, rail and waterborne. And last is a different loading unit for every type of cargo. So thank you very much all for voting. And thank you very much for posing questions to the speakers. We're going to have we're going to have a coffee break, and after the coffee break, we're going to continue with more interesting speakers. So we hope to see you back in around 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, 11:40.
Okay, I hope you all enjoyed your coffee, or maybe you're still enjoying your coffee. Welcome back to the European Intermodal Summit and the second half. And while you are still in the peaceful mode, we're going to enjoy an inspiring film made by Pure Green Partners.
I spend a lot of time thinking about what I should say to you. Telling you what I want to do with my life is a big question. What I really want is to be involved with something that makes a difference. Something big, something important, something to make change happen. The world needs change. Should I be worried about pollution? Should anyone? The science is there, and it isn't going to go away if we ignore it. But worrying is like swinging. You move, but you don't go anywhere. I want to get things done. There are solutions. When you think about trains, one train equals 40 trucks. But what do I mean? The decision for trains is gonna mean there's 40 less trucks on the road. That's only good for the environment. On a journey of 1,000 kilometers, a truck emits about 1 ton of CO2. We're talking about 22,000 balloons filled with CO2. Rail transport is nearly climate neutral. It doesn't have any impact. Now the calculation is easy. The decision for rail can save 869,565 balloons of CO2 per train journey. If only we could move trucks and cars on the railway.
You want to reinvent the wheel?
What if trucks and wheeled vehicles could come as they are and could be easily lifted?
I know there are people out there right now finding solutions. There are people that make change happen every day. And I want to be one of them.
And again, 869,565 balloons saved. It's all there. Everything I was dreaming of. What's stopping us? The potential is huge. Let's make change happen. The future is rail. Let's get the Green Deal on track.
Start now.
Okay, that was a very nice way of starting the second half of this conference. And I now call on Rolf Charlie Schulze to introduce the second half of the conference. Because what are the intermodal solutions that we have for the present day and what are the solutions to offer for the future? That is what it's all about. Rolf Charlie, please go ahead.
So still under the impression of the video, the future is intermodal, definitely. Combined transport and the challenges of the present. Unfortunately, there still are some challenges, and I need the presentation. What are the challenges of the present and of the future? And as in the first session, we stated what the challenges of the past were and we proposed solutions. We will also go the same way now. We will present the challenges of the present and of the future, but in the meantime also try to bring some solutions. So one of the 5 challenges of the present is the sustainable zero carbon transport solution. It's e-commerce boom, it's urbanization and increased population density, it's the aging population, the reduced workforce and the labor shortage, and its geographic connectedness in global competition. Next slide, please. The first one being sustainable zero carbon transport solutions. The solution here is clearly electric propulsion, meaning the power of the wind, the sun, and gravitation, so hydroelectric, turned into freight transport. Electric rail, the longer distance segments, electric trucks on the short, urban runs connected at electrically powered terminals to produce a zero carbon transport chain. Next slide, please. The second challenge is the e-commerce boom, which is all over and all around. And of course, it can be a solution to take truckload or half truckload quantities from the road to more sustainable modes of transport. Through what? Through the intermodal shuttle concept, where frequent intermodal shuttle trains consisting of efficient wagons travel on high quality train paths at timetable speeds of over 100 kilometers per hour to connect the entire continent, but also through interconnectedness of the actors. We have to collaborate between the different stakeholders, rail, waterborne, road operators, as well as terminals, ports, and infrastructure managers are digitally connected with shippers and consigners. This would be the solution, and of course, it is always clean and nice. The next challenge is the not existing similar density of terminals in all the member states. So we need urban terminals because we have an increased population density as well. And these urban terminals closer to the cities, you can see a nice picture here of Budapest, they are quieter, they are closer, and of course, they present complex services, all the value-added services to enable precise deliveries. Next challenge is the aging population and the labor shortage. So here the solution, of course, is one driver is there for 50 to 100 loads. The single driver from the long sections, the locomotive driver or a skipper of a barge drives 50 to 100 truckloads on the longer sections. And the intermodal trucker drives as a day job. He returns home to his family every night. And of course, the work-life balance is much better. Then we have the geographic connectedness and the global competitiveness. And here the solution is digitalization. Digitalization to mitigate the complexity. We have to take out complexity out of intermodal. For those who don't know intermodal, it sounds very complex, but it's not so complex. It is a good solution, but we have to mitigate some of the complex issues. So standardized data messages, blockchain solutions, end-to-end tracking and tracing, quality management supported by digital data, interconnected systems. These are the solutions which we will hear of also in the speeches of the speaker later on. For an industry association, this means that our role is managing relationships. What do I mean here? We have a galaxy of sector stakeholders, of partners, of peers, but we have to manage these relationships. And as an industry association, wanting to have more standardization, more standards in the whole in the sector, more harmonization, we need to know all the actors and we need to bring them together. Next slide. We develop as industry association best practices, and I want to mention here a common approach with UIC. We are working on the report on combined transport 2020. Tomorrow there will be a press conference. It's really important to have not only the data, but really statistics that are meaningful. Today, unfortunately, with Eurostat, we have data, but they are not always corresponding to the industry itself. So here it's important to collect, this next slide, and to disseminate the information, to have the right statistics and the right reports in order to know what we are talking about. And then at the end, Intermodal will deliver. Marjorie, I get back the floor to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Charlie. So intermodal is not as complex as it sounds. That would be my main takeaway. I like that one. We have more leaders from the intermodal sector who are going to share their knowledge with us, and mostly they're going to share which solutions are available for the present and the future. I would like to ask all the participants, all the participating speakers to hang on there because we do have questions from the audience. So once you finish your presentation, do not leave, please. We have questions for you in the end. So to begin with, we have a video presentation from the president of the Port of Trieste, Zeno D'Agostino, and he is also the vice chairman of the European Seaport Organization. Please go ahead.
Dear Madam Commissioner Vălean, dear State Secretary Bilger, dear First Vice Chair Ulieli, and to all our distinguished attendees on the European Intermodal Summit. You know, I want to give you a presentation, a small, very short speech that it is only to ask you to focus on what is for us very important, what we have done, especially in the last 5 years in Trieste, where we dedicate all our activity to the development of an integrated logistics system, where you have ports, where you have dry ports, logistic platform, intermodal terminals, free zone, industrial areas, and all of these nodes of an integrated platform are linked via through the railways activity. So, you know, in the last 5 years, we doubled the number of a train in Trieste. We passed from less than 5,000 trains to quite less than 10,000 trains. In only 5 years, we doubled the number of the trains. Everything we think is due to what we have done in the new organization of this integrated system. So what we ask is that you have not only to focus on the long-range intermodal services. I think it is an important thing, but it is not the only issue. We believe that if we want to enhance the relation in an intermodal corridor between all the nodes, among the nodes of our intermodal corridor, it is very, very important to study, to analyze, to organize, and also to aid the activity of a short-range shuttle trains between the nodes of a local system. So this is what we have done in Trieste. We invested a lot on this. We reorganized the shuttle activity, the shunting activities, and also we invest a lot in the shuttle trains between the nodes. We believe that if we want to create a real model shift. You know, in Trieste now we have a 56% of a container moved in the port of Trieste are moved by train. I think it is a huge number, you know, 56%. You know, the objective of European Union is 50% in 2050. We have done 56% in 2019. We reach all these results putting together the nodes, integrating the nodes through shuttle trains among the nodes. So we ask you, support the short range shuttle trains, the short range intermodal system, because it is one of the most important issues, not the only one, but one of the most important issues that we have done in Trieste, and we get very important results. So this is my small intervention to what you are doing. I give you all my wishes. I think you will do an important job, and thank you very much for what you are doing and what we will do for what is for us the most important things, the supporting of intermodality in the development, in the sustainable development of our Europe. Thank you to all you.
And thank you very much to you. I now invite Mr. Peter Kish. He is the CEO of Metrans, and Metrans is one of Europe's largest intermodal transport operators. They have an extensive network in Europe and in Central and Eastern Europe. Please, Peter Kish, take the floor.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be today and having the possibility to see all the faces and having possibility to hear the opinions. Today, as we are celebrating the occasion that the UIRR is celebrating 50 years of the existence, I have to congratulate to all the members that were founding UIRR as a platform for a cooperation and a discussion. I have to congratulate also to Ralph Charlie and his whole team. We as Metrans are a relatively new member of UIRR, and I can remember the first discussion with Ralph Charlie where he has tried to convince me to become a member of UIRR. And Ralph Charlie, thank you that you made it, and we are happy that we have the possibility to discuss, to cooperate, because it's something that is very important, and it will be also one of the last parts in my today's speech. Today, in these difficult times, we have daily challenges which are influencing our work, which are influencing our daily life. The Metrans Group will next year celebrate the anniversary of 30 years. This is something that is bringing me back to the beginning of the 90s, where in the former Czechoslovakia, the founder of Metrans, Mr. Samek, and a few of his friends and the people that have had also the same idea, and made the first connection, the first terminal, and the first train from Prague connecting Hamburg. So this is something that is the basic of Metrans. This is the basic of our trying to build up competitive and the working business solution in Europe. And this is something that we are looking back today on 17 terminals in 9 countries. We are looking back also on the year 2010, where thanks to the liberalization of the railway business, we have had a chance to change also and improve our strategy. We became a railway undertaking, and today approximately 600 of our trains are crossing per week the European railway network. Today it's a special occasion, and in the beginning also from Madame Balayan we have heard that we are speaking about the outlook, and we have heard a lot of notes. We have heard also a lot of questions, and in the first movie there was also the basic question, if we are ready. But the first sentence was the combined traffic or the combined transport is ready. The question is if it's true and if really the combined transport is true. Because I have already mentioned several strategies which are coming from the level European Union, but on the other hand, we have local strategies, local governmental strategies, which are not 100% following maybe the goal. And this is something that we have also in our hand as members of UIRR to improve this. We have the possibility to become a strong partner, a strong voice all across the Europe, because the member or the list of the members and the number of the transported containers, trailers, and several other multimodal, intermodal or combined units is so huge that UIRR has really a strong voice and is somebody who has to be heard, has to be, let's say, consulted how to achieve strategies like this 2030, 2050. By the last and the third point, what has been sent to me, I have to say that UIRR is a very interesting, very important association. We are proud to be now the third year to be a part of it. I have to thank you. I have to thank you for all the discussions, and really I am looking forward to our more stronger work together to achieve that maybe in the next 5 years, or maybe in the next year when we will meet everybody in Brussels, we will have the possibility to say already what we have achieved. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Peter Kish, and thank you for raising such important questions as are we ready? The next speaker is from Hupak, and Hupak is of course another dominant player on the intermodal transport industry. Hupak has been a force that shaped the European combined transport sector, and this has been done mostly starting from the Swiss transport policy. So we would like to invite the CEO, Michael Stalut, and we're hoping to hear more from you, Michael, about the future plans of Hupak.
Thank you, Marjorie. It's just a pity not to be with you and to see you only virtual, to see you all only virtual. But nevertheless, these funny times are bringing these funny instruments to us, and we have to use them. We have to use them. Thanks to you all, and thanks to UIRR to make this event possible, and thank you to the UIRR team to connect us in this virtual environment, and to bring us all together, our little tiny sector, which is the helping hand for the greenhouse movement in the future. More than 50 years, Hupak is encouraged to do more intermodal, and what does mean encouraging? For us, it means we are above 1 million road consignments, what we shift from road to rail, and therefore I guess intermodal, not only Hupak, with us all, we are the helping hand for reducing the greenhouse for reducing the greenhouse gas in the future. It is a low carb diet. What we have to do is a low carb diet for Europe, and intermodal is the blueprint, the environment, the solution for this low carb diet for Europe. This little funny continent, Europe was built industrial-wise 200 years ago. We linked various cities. We means mankind in Europe. We linked various cities. Industries were born in the north of Italy, in the middle of Italy, in France, in Germany, in Poland. All over Europe there was industry. And if we want to keep our industry alive, and then we have to link our industries. And this mankind did over the last 100 years. We linked this with pipelines, with intermodal pipelines, with rail pipelines. And if we want to do it sustainable and more sustainable, then intermodal is the solution, because intermodal is the sustainable arm, the sustainable the sustainable copy print for us all, because they are the strengths of all modes. They are linked. And if we want to take a look at these on these low carb diet, what we have to achieve in Europe, then taking a look at the heavy transport system, 20% of the greenhouse gas is coming from the heavy transport. And if we want to reduce this by 1/3, then we have to more than double the rail volume in Europe, more than doubling. And now I must say, I want to take a look in your astonished faces and taking a look at your question marks. But I have to tell you, more than 100% is achievable. Why? Actually, currently our network is utilized at a level of 550 meter trains. Without thinking, we can raise the volume with the same trains by 30%. That means the first step we can do tomorrow or even today by using normal train lengths if the infrastructure is available for that. And the next one is we can utilize our network with a dense network better if we have the ERTMS on the network. Means the same infrastructure, longer trains, but we can utilize it the most. And then the third one is we have to use unutilized infrastructure. There's a huge amount of unutilized infrastructure. Just taking a look at the Rail Freight Corridor 2 and the Rail Freight Corridor 1. If we compare both Rail Freight corridors, then we can utilize Rail Freight Corridor 2 instead of 1, and then we can use our infrastructure. That means many initiatives we can do on our own by supporting this low carb diet for Europe. And taking a look at the short time achievables and the long term achievables, I must say there are some things we can do out of our own. Out of our own means let us go for longer trains. Let us go for I saw the poll made in the last session. 32% of the voters were said that in the past to shift semi-trailers on rail was an advantage, was supportive act. I must say this is the future for more semi-trailers on rail. We have to shift. We have to go for more trainables. We have to shift semi-trailers on rail. We have to go to support the infrastructure managers to go for 740 meter train lengths. We have to learn that out of Corona something. For example, our quality was significantly higher compared to the past. That means we were not infected by passenger trains, and we need capacity. We need given capacity in the future on the infrastructures for our intermodal trains. I believe in strong opinions. I believe in a strong footprint of intermodal in Europe. I believe in UIRR, which is supporting our strong opinions and our strong footprint in the future. Thank you all, and have a nice event today. Marjorie, it's your turn.
Thank you very much. So the solution is a low carb diet for Europe. That's a good thing to remember. Okay, our next speaker is not an infrastructure manager. It's not a railway operator. It's actually the chemical mega trader company BASF. And we are going to introduce you Thorsten Bieger. And he is in charge of the mega tank container project through which the operation of the company will be fundamentally changed. So please go ahead, Mr. Bieger.
Thank you so much. Intermodal transport is the most important innovation in rail transport. From BASF point of view, intermodal transport is the enabler for shifting cargo from road to rail. BASF is supporting intermodal traffic already for many years. For example, we invested in terminals on our sites, and 2 of these terminals are also members of the organization. To support rail transport further, BASF invented a new class of tank containers, the so-called BASF class tank containers. These new rail-optimized tank containers are able to ship 67 tons payload with a gross weight of 75 tons. On site, the first and the last mile transport is on road. We use also new invented autonomous driving vehicles called AGVs. These AGVs have 32 wheels and spread the weight evenly on the road, so they can drive on standard roads. New autonomous driving technology and sensors allow the system to drive and navigate fully automated on an open and a very, very complex infrastructure shared with pedestrians, cyclists, cars, trucks, rail wagons, and also forklifts. Today, these vehicles drive only on BASF side, but within the next 1 to 2 years, we plan to have first pilot projects on public roads running. The innovative AGV allows in the near future to transport 75-ton payload, means 1 BASF class tank container, or 2 standard tank containers, let's say in a distance 25 kilometers around terminals. The new BASF and VDL invented AGV is creating further advantage for the intermodal first and last mile services. But why has BASF invented a new system and is not using the existing ones? To answer that, we have to compare an intermodal standard, let's say 20-foot tank container, with a 4-axle rail tanker used in conventional rail transport. Advantage of standard tank containers compared to rail tankers is the separation from tank from the rail wagon. And we have all the advantages you all know, which is created by intermodal transport. Disadvantage of the 24-foot tank container compared to the 4-axle rail tanker is the much lower volume and payload. You need twice the number of tanks. This costs loading and unloading capacity at our production plants. Our new BASF class tank containers combine the advantages of both worlds. We have the same high volume and payload like conventional rail cars, and in addition, all the advantages from the tank container world. What we need is a new terminal network with cranes able to move 75-ton containers. BASF already has 1 terminal in Ludwigshafen able to move the new heavy containers, and BASF plans also to invest in their terminals in Antwerp, in the plant terminal in Tarragona, and also the plant terminal in Schwarzheide to have there also 75-ton cranes. Also others, like Landwehr, are investing in terminals in Hamm with cranes able to move 75 tons, and also in a terminal in Antwerp port. Therefore, a new 75-ton terminal network is coming soon to intermodal transport, and also operators like Hupak and Kombiverkehr are already prepared by having wagons able to transport the new heavier BASF class tank containers. At the end, the new BASF class tank containers form a new segment of 75-ton segment in intermodal transport, bringing both train systems together, combining the volumes from conventional and intermodal rail transport, and that means more train frequency and faster intermodal services, making intermodal transport in total stronger, shifting volume from road and barge to sustainable intermodal transport. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thorsten Beeker, for this glimpse into the intermodal future of BASF. And you were already the last in the series of CEO presentations, so it's time again to ask the audience a question, and we have a poll again. Same system, just now we have a little bit of a shorter time for the answers. You have 60 seconds. And the question is, which solutions to the challenges of the present to be provided by combined transport will prove to be the most effective? So we're now focusing on the present. The answers are a fully electric intermodal transport chain, frequent intermodal shuttles and digital interconnections, zero-emission terminals close to urban areas, fewer high productivity jobs to create transport services, or digitalization to mitigate the complexity of intermodal. So again, 5 questions, you can choose one, and we're going to see in the end of this conference, yes, whether what you have voted. So the next step will be the Q&A session again. So hopefully all our speakers are still there, and you have many questions for them. If you haven't addressed them yet, you can now type them into the chat box. It's very important to use this chat box so we can take up these questions and address them to the speakers. So I suggest we go ahead with the Q&A session. Ralph, Charlie, back to you. We're not there yet. Working on it. Yes, he's here with us.
So you can hear me?
Yes.
Very good. I have one question, which is the following. What are you proposing to make shorter distance combined transport more competitive? You all have heard Zino D'Agostino, who said shorter combined transport trains will help the port. I'm asking the question now to Peter or to Michael. What are you proposing to make shorter distance combined transport more competitive? Peter? Peter, you're still with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. The question is, what is a shorter distance?
What are you proposing to make shorter distance more competitive in combined transport?
Yeah, and I'm, let's say, coming back with another question. What is a shorter distance? Because when we see
shorter than 300, Peter.
When we see in our network, there is a hub and shuttle and the so-called end terminal connection. So the hub solutions are one of the key roles in our business model, where we have the high frequency between ports and hinterland, and then the hinterland hub is distributing for terminals which are 180-200 kilometers away from the hub terminal, and then again having the possibility to serve with the last mile another approximately 150 kilometers. So when we take a look on this, then it exists, it is workable. Of course, depends also on the area, depends on the let's say local possibilities, because at this moment, when you will compare only the pure 200 kilometers rail and track, then the track will be cheaper and faster.
Very good, Peter. I have a second question to you. We've heard about the modal share target, and that should be spelled out, but also a punctuality improvement target could be pledged by the sector. Would you be ready to do so?
Maybe I did not get the beginning of your question because there was a strange something. Can you repeat it, please?
Perhaps easier if you see me.
Yeah.
We have a modal share target today, 30% 2030, 50% 2050. Shouldn't we also have a punctuality improvement target? So regarding the quality of the trains, should this be pledged by the sector? And would you be ready to support it? This was a question from the audience.
Okay, thank you. Of course, I think it has been also mentioned by two of our co-speakers today. We have an issue. We have an issue with the capacity on the rail tracks across Europe, and this is having the impact on the punctuality, on the let's say how fast we can organize the transportation. We have to be always taking care also about the passenger traffic. This is one of the core things that will influence the plans like 2030, 2050.
Definitely. Thank you for your answer. And one last question, Peter, to you. Crossing the external borders of the EU by truck, train, or waterborne vessel, The question of the audience is, which is easier and which is more confident? I think the answer is not so difficult.
When we speak about the time, then I would answer rail. When we speak about administrative issues, then I would say truck.
Definitely, yeah. Still easier, but as I said earlier, our challenge of the future is to take out complexity of the system of intermodal. And then, of course, I'm very confident that also the train will be competitive on this side. Thank you for your answers, Peter. Is Michael still with us? Michael? It's not the case. It is the case. There you are. So the same question to you, Michael.
But Ralf, first, I have to tell you another target. What we need is a capacity target for intermodal. We need on the infrastructure a clear capacity allocation for intermodal. There's another target I want to achieve.
No
but
questions
tell me a
anymore.
question.
No questions anymore. No, great. But what would you propose to make shorter distance combined transport more competitive? What is HUPAC doing here?
Yep, it's the same answer like Peter did. We also do transports in the area of 250 and 200 kilometers. In Switzerland, it's easy because there you have a supportive act by the state. But also we're doing it also in Germany and also in Europe between some cities. What is needed? Productivity, quality, and price. And taking a look at the streets, the first 5 trucks, they are easy to get. The last 200 are really a challenge. Therefore, intermodal is a solution. But the shorter the distance, the harder to achieve. Means quality is key and productivity is key. Means longer trains and utilize the most stable capacity, stable quality, and then we will go for it.
Again, the second question also to you. You talked about capacities. What about punctuality improvement? Do you think that the sector is ready to go for a target of punctuality improvement?
I must say, Ralf, what is our biggest learning out of Corona, out of these crazy times where we are in, is taking a look at the Rhine-Alpine transport. The Rhine-Alpine transport was in the past always suffering by quality. And now, currently, we are at a level of 2015. 2013 to 2015, that was where we had the best quality level compared to the last 10 years. And why? I'm always asking me why is it now better? And I have to tell you, a passenger is not impacting us currently because, and what means passenger? If a long distance passenger train is going into a station and many people are going in and out, this is time consuming. And then the passenger has, again, going onto the stretch, has a priority. And now learning about low utilization of passenger trains, the schedules of the trains are punctual again. That means the passenger schedules, they have to be improved, and that means we are not disturbing the network. We are stable even during that time. That means we could take a look at the quality, but we have to take also a look at the impacting other modes.
Thank you very much, Michael. May I ask Thorsten Bieger to react on the quality issue? Thorsten, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
So please, can you react on the quality issue, please?
Yes.
Punctuality.
Quality is quite important. The most obstacle to bring more cargo to rail is that it takes too long, that the product is not arriving in time. So we have to do here more to get the things faster done. I also would like to answer on the question, what can we do to bring more cargo on rail? And there are two things. One is, if you look for shorter distances, you need a very effective first and last mile service, like we have with our AGV. So we have here already a train which is transporting box containers from Ludwigshafen to a 30 kilometers away terminal. So it is possible to do this competitive. Second is, for the last mile services, if you have a short transport, the cost for the move is much higher compared to a longer transport. Therefore, we need their subsidies, like in Switzerland, to bring more cargo to rail also for shorter distances. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thorsten. And with this, I give back to Marjorie, who will present the results of the poll. Marjorie?
Yes, thank you, Rolf Charlie. The results of the poll. Let's see what the audience had to say about the future solutions. Now we have, again, a not so clear winner, but a winner: frequent intermodal shuttles and digital interconnections. That is on the first place. And then second is digitalization to mitigate the complexity of intermodal. Then a fully electric intermodal transport chain is third. Fourth is zero emission terminals close to urban areas. And a small group of people voted for fewer high productivity jobs to create transport services. Now, Rolf Charlie, maybe you can give a reaction to that?
Yes, short reaction, if you can let the poll, please, so I can see it. Yes, so it's really interesting that the first one is frequent intermodal shuttles and digital interconnections, and the second one, digitalization. So digitalization seems really to be the main provider, enabler for the solutions of the future. So we cannot do without digitalization. It's not a target as such, but digitalization will definitely help a lot in the future. And of course, fully electric intermodal transport chain has also been scored very high. I think this gives a good picture on where we are standing, but the expectation is where the solutions and the leverages of the future can be. And now I give back to you, Marjorie.
Yes, thank you very much. And of course, thank you, audience, for voting. It's also good to see a little bit of participation from your side. So before we close off the conference, we have one last speaker. I was gone. Okay, we have a speaker, but we are currently trying to connect to her. Her name is Magda Kupczynski. She is the director of DG Move, responsible for maritime and intermodal transport. And we would like to ask her for a short response to the day. What have we learned today? What are the main takeaways? This is a difficult task, of course, because there were a lot of interesting takeaways, but I leave that entirely up to her. Do we already have a connection with Mrs. Kupczynska? I'm afraid not yet. Yes, we do. Okay, great. Then I give you the floor. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Magda, do you can you unmute yourself, and can you activate your camera?
I am unmuted. I am unmuted, and for the camera, it's normally activated. Does it work? Perfect.
Does it work? Do we see you? We don't see you, but we can hear you. So that's
okay.
Good enough.
But then I propose I just talk, because the moment I start connecting my camera, I will need to disconnect. Apologies for that. For me, a clear example that I'm not there yet, technology-wise. But thank you for giving me the opportunity to try to do a short summary. It's indeed tricky, as you said, because there have been so many interesting insights and interventions. And congratulations for this, the summit composition, because it's a unique group of CEOs of the important companies that make intermodal happen, or that will make intermodal happen. I actually believe, listening to all the interventions throughout the day, that our aim to considerably increase the intermodal transport in order to reduce the negative effects of road-only transport really is doable, and really is an objective that we all share. And with that, we will be able to fulfill the EU citizens' expectations, which, as pointed by Mr. Agilai earlier today from the European Parliament, European citizens clearly ask for transport to become cleaner and for transport to go away from road only. You heard from the Commissioner this morning that we are looking at a wide range of measures, from investment to regulation to promotion and transparency. And following today's discussion, I believe that indeed we are going the right way, as on the one hand, we are looking at most of the issues that have been raised today, but we are also looking at some of the aspects that have not yet come into the discussion. Most importantly, as Mr. Bilger said, all sides, both in the sector and in the EU and in national administrations, have to work together, because this is the only way to achieve our targets and to have common strategies, as pointed out by Mr. Kish from Metrans. And I believe that this is indeed the key to success. For that reason, we are looking at European level solutions, because we have to avoid national patchwork rules that were pointed out to be a problem by Mr. Brohan. I think we all agree, and it was also pointed as a priority by Mr. Ambrogio, that the first precondition for intermodal transport is the availability of infrastructure. Although interestingly, this final poll actually pointed out to the huge importance of digitalization, I think we could have yet another 2-hour discussion, which of the two is more important, or are they actually both extremely valid? The Commissioner told you already today that we are reviewing TEN-T guidelines in the second half of 2021, and that intermodal transport is one of the key issues we keep in mind during that review. The amendment of the Combined Transport Directive will follow in early 2022, and the question is how to address investments into terminals will be one of the issues to be addressed in that revised directive. For example, we need to analyze where the terminals are needed more, if different transshipment technologies need different approach, and then how to incentivize investment. I took note today that semi-trailers on rail and relevant loading gauge are a major challenge, which is of course not new, but it's good to hear from you restated again, but that they are also an opportunity for the sector. And then the central hubs that can consolidate cargo from and to many destinations can be a well-working model, like they have been in Duisburg for quite a while. We are also working with DG Competition on reviewing state aid rules to facilitate state aid to intermodal terminals. Second, and here I come back to this main issue that came in the poll just before my intervention, we know that the wider use of e-commerce is changing the way goods are delivered, and not always to the best. Transport companies, of course, react to consumer demand, and they have to. So it seems that the main issue to address that question is to make sure that consumers realize the effect of their choices. Changing or influencing at least the consumer behavior is a slow process, but it needs to start now. We are considering a possible measure on tracking and comparing carbon footprint of transport choices, both for consumers and for shippers. Well, Mr. Schulz has stated clearly today that since we live in the 21st century, we need to bring the transport sector paperwork to the 21st century. You are all well aware of the recently adopted regulation on electronic freight transport information that will look at assuring optimized, seamless and cost-efficient information flow on the movement of goods across different transport modes. They will look at establishing standards not just for communication with authority systems in any EU member states, but also to enable private FT platforms interoperability. Transferring cargo information instantly between different actors in the logistics chain will facilitate multimodal transport planning and optimization of vehicle loading and routing. And again, this final poll really pointed to that issue as being one of the key drivers to push for intermodal solutions. The FT regulation covers transport on road, rail, inland waterways and air, but not explicitly maritime. At the same time, you will know that we are working on the implementation of the European Maritime Single Window environment, especially at data definitions level, which will be completely compatible and interoperable with the FT solutions to make sure that cargo information can be reused in all transport modes. We have already progressed quite a lot on the implementation of the framework in the Digital Transport and Logistics Forum that represents the entire spectrum of logistics stakeholder groups. And let me thank many of you who either have been represented here as speakers or are listening for being such active and constructive and sometimes challenging participants of the DTLF. There's also a question of the competitiveness of the service. Several issues related to that, how to make intermodal actually be an attractive choice, have been mentioned today, but I believe two are most important. The quality of the sector, or the quality of the service, sorry, and then cross-modal price competitiveness with road-only transport. The Commissioner has already mentioned the Eurovignette directive that is still under negotiations and that should in the end allow better to internalize road sector's external costs. We will try to look at all those issues in a package. And assuming that we will not be able to address all market failures immediately, we will also be looking at possibilities and needs to establish a new temporary economic support measures for intermodal operations in the amended Combined Transport Directive, either at member states or EU level, and also to pay particular attention to innovative solutions or new business models, like many of the examples that were mentioned today. For example, short-range shuttle trains can be an important solution in some areas, as mentioned by Mr. D'Agostino from Trieste, automated vehicles or new loading units, as pointed out by Mr. Bieke from BASF. Again, I hope you will understand that, of course, at this moment, we can't give you more details about the future shape of the Combined Transport Directive, but we are working on it. Commissioner also mentioned initiatives on how to improve service quality in the rail sector. In the second half of 2021, we will propose amendments to the Rail Freight Corridor Regulation. The aim is to ensure that freight trains would have a better access to high quality international rail capacity by strengthening cross-border cooperation of infrastructure managers. Being faster, being more reliable would then make rail freight services more competitive vis-à-vis road. I will stop here, but again, big thanks for all those interesting discussions. I could probably talk for half an hour to keep recalling all the interesting things that have been mentioned. But I think we all agree that there's a lot of work ahead of us to achieve the low-carb diet for transport, as put by Mr. Stalhut from HUPAC. To echo the Commissioner, I urge you to share with us the problems that you see to be addressed, just like today, ideas how to address them. And I think I need to say, please think outside the box, because we really need to come up with a great plan to make intermodal transport prosper. And just last comment, big thanks for the movies that you showed, in particular the one showed after the coffee break. I like to think that change is possible, like the young lady in the movie, and that we can make it happen now. Thank you very much, and congratulations on a fantastic event.
Thank you very, very much, Magda. After this great summary, I only can thank you, and I can reassure you we are thinking out of the box. In the past, intermodal delivered. In the present, it still delivers, and we will make sure that in the future, intermodal will continue to deliver. I must also thank Marjorie van Leyen for her great work today. Thank you so much, Marjorie. Well done. I know that with the technicality, it's not always easy. Life is better, but at least I think we managed to show faces, real faces, and to make it very personal. Thank you for the great job. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the European Intermodal Summit 2020. We are grateful for your persistence and interest in the combined transport method of forwarding freight. We look forward to welcoming you next year, 2021, for UIRR's 50+1 anniversary and the next European Intermodal Summit. I really thank all of you who participated. We are on the right track. Goodbye and bon appétit.